I'm going to show you how to do some parametric equations inside of Inventor. So I'm going to start a new sketch. I'm going to draw a rectangular shape from the origin, and I'm going to go ahead and put in my first dimension. And so one thing that I want you to notice is when you click to put in this dimension, it automatically comes up and starts labeling the dimensions. And so this one is called D0. And so I could put that dimension in this case it is 3 inches. The next dimension comes up, and again notice that it defines the variable for the dimension. In this case it's calling it D1. This is where you can start to put in some of those parametric equations, and so all of our dimensions are going to be centered around this dimension right here of 3. And so the first dimension that I'm going to put in, the parametric equation, is going to be D0, that's for this dimension, times 5 divided by 3. I put that in, and that gives me I figured out the equation using this dimension that will make this 5 inches. One of the problems that people run into when they start putting in these dimensions is, let's say this wasn't correct, and so I want to delete the dimension off of it, and I want to redimension it. Notice how now this became D2 instead of D1. And so it doesn't go back, and it will not go back and show you that other dimension. And so in this case I can go ahead and again I'll put in the same equation, D0 times 5 thirds, and that will give me the dimension of 5. Now one thing you can do to help eliminate that problem is if you go to Manage and click Parameters, it will bring up the equation that you're using for each dimension. And so here's our parameters for the model we're making. In this case, because there isn't a D1, I can go ahead and rename that dimension to D1, and then when I click on it again it'll be back to dimension D1. And so that's how you can edit if you make a mistake and you need to delete a dimension, how you can get it back to the dimension you want. So what you're going to do is you're just going to go through and you're going to model this part. I have those 2 dimensions done. The next thing I need to do is extrude it, and it has a overall thickness of 1/4 inch. So I'm going to use dimension D1 to do that. So that was our 5-inch dimension here. So I'm going to put D1 times or D1, let's say, divided by 20. So if we divide 5 by 20 we get 0.25, and that'll be the thickness of the material. And so I want to show you why we do these parametric equations. If you go ahead and click on one of those dimensions, and if you want to go in and edit that first dimension we made, let's say we make it 1.5, it will automatically scale the model down, and so it keeps the scale accurate. And so this is no longer 1/4 of an inch, it's 1/8 of an inch, because we've put in equations. And that is the value of using parametric equations when you're modeling parts in Inventor. So you're going to want to go through and figure out the parametric equation that you need to be able to create the part as it is described in the drawing, and basically you're going to be typing in those parametric equations that you did on your table. It doesn't have to be exactly done like you did on the table, so if you want to do it a different way, it's okay. Just at the end of your part you should have something that looks like this. And again, how you can check it, go back into that first dimension you put in, the constant one, change it. If everything else shrinks down and scales correctly, you've done it correct. So that's how you create those parametric equations in Inventor.